I'd like to call this evening's meeting to order, please, and please rise and salute the flag, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as follows. On December 13, 2019, notice was sent to the Homeland Tribune, Star Ledger, local source, and the clerk of the municipality. By state law, there is no smoking permitted in this building at any time.
Yeah, roll call, please.
Mrs. Birch? Here. Mr. Gargano?
Here.
Ms. Gilliam? Here. Ms. Johnson? Here. Ms. Kozak? Here. Ms. Manganello? Here. Mr. Shahada?
Here.
Mrs. Bebian?
Present.
Mr. Martucci?
Here. At this time, at the beginning, we're going to have our order presentation first.
I'd like to introduce Warren Korecki from Suppley Clooney, and he's going to review the audit for you tonight.
Good evening. The audit report, usually, this is for June 30th, 2018, and the report was, it's due by state statute December 5th, 2018. Now, what's happened is the State Department of Education, there was a new accounting principle. It's like it's called the GASB 75, and it was effective for this school year, this fiscal year. And what happened is it's a problem with the state. You have individuals that get lifetime health insurance, but they're paid through the Teachers Pension and Annuity Fund, not through the district. So it's called a special funding situation. So what's happening is the state has to accumulate all these numbers from all the districts around the state and give us the numbers to put into this report. Because this report was done in early November. It's just been in a holding pattern. And all the board, we do like 35 boards, and everyone has not been filed yet. They're just waiting for numbers from the state. The state got far behind on this. They didn't think it was going to take as long as it was going to take. But they have to get these numbers to us, give us the liability for the health cost and what the expenses for the year. But what's the sad thing about it is this report won't change. There'll be one number in and one number out. The bottom lines are going to be the same as they were, a month from now when they give us the numbers that they are as today. But nobody wants what they call a qualified report. They want the numbers in here. The state wanted us to put the numbers in there, so they told us to put on this holding pattern. So what the guidance from the state is right now is when they give us the numbers, we have 30 days to get the final report out. But we haven't got the numbers from the state yet. So, and you don't owe anything. There'll be no liability on this because the State Department, through the TPAF, is actually going to pay for it, but technically under the rules, it's a third-party payment. It comes in as an expense and then it comes in as a revenue and it just basically washes. So it's, any benefit to the district, absolutely not, but that's just the way the rules are and how it should be reported. And that's why it's been kind of late. Not kind of late, it's really late. It should have been a month ago, like I said, the report was done in early November. You should have two draft reports in front of you. One is the capital and one is the management report. The management report, when the state gives us a manual, it gives an audit manual every year. It's about 150 pages, and there's all kinds of compliance information that the state wants us to look at as we're doing the audit. It deals with payroll, it deals with food cafeteria, it deals with contracts, it deals with vouchers and bank reconciliations and all the reports. And this is where your recommendations would be. And we do have one recommendation this year. And I'll just read it, and it's on page 9 of the management report under financial planning, accounting, and reporting. It just says that detailed employee salary records be maintained on a current basis. And basically what we're just saying with that is when we check what individuals are paid, we go back to the personnel records, make sure they're paid exactly what they were appointed for. And where the problem came now is we couldn't tie into those records because there was like upgrades for educational credits. So to get a master's degree or a PhD, you get a little bump in your salary. Those detailed records that support that increase were not in the financial, not in the personnel files. So we're just saying that, in other words, update those records so we can go from the personnel records back to the payroll that the VA is paying. So the two should agree. The salary sheet paying should come back and supported by some of the records in the district.
So Warren, for all of us actually, because we have new board members and veteran board members, but
in the grand scheme of things, this recommendation, is it a big deal?
No, it's minor in nature, but it's just something that, like I said, this is backed up by a state audit manual. They asked us to check authorized salaries back to the personnel records, okay? And their idea of what's material is different from mine, but they said that something like that should be reported on. Because somebody's paying, they're being paying $1, the authorization should be for $1, that's all. We just couldn't find it. In the grand scheme of things, it's very minor.
Thank you.
Big thing.
And everybody was paid properly, I mean. it
Yeah, no,
wasn't
yeah,
that
everybody was
got
paid the right amount. We went back and asked.
Right.
It's- People were, in other words, the payroll department was able to find out, the personnel department was able to find out, yes, this person had a master's degree, this person had a PhD, and they got a little bit of bump. They were able to find, I'm just saying, when we first looked, the files that they gave us, it just wasn't in there.
Understood.
Well, they did a little search and they did find it.
Considering we haven't had a flip on our audit
Yeah.
years.
5 audits, we haven't had a recommendation. So typically, guys, you don't want a recommendation. Although this is a very minor one, as Warren said, a recommendation means you can do something better, right? We haven't, this is our first one,
It's a good number of
I don't know.
years.
Since 2006.
and the one in 2006 had nothing to do with us, it had to do with student activity accounts. It was the
Right.
school,
Yes.
yeah. So, again, not a big deal, but we'll fix it.
Okay. All right.
All right, does anyone else have any questions before we vote on this, please? Anybody? What do you, board members, any? I know the new ones are gonna have.
I'm gonna abstain just because.
Yes, well,
I wasn't
Yeah,
involved in last
it
year.
was last year's,
Okay, okay, with that,
Thank you, Warren.
Okay. No problem.
take a roll call.
So, Mr. Board President, I make a motion to move the audit report for the 2017-18 school year prepared by Southeast William Company and respectfully ask for a second.
Second.
Mrs. Birch,
Yes.
Mr. Gargano,
Abstain.
Ms. Gilliam,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Abstain.
Ms. Kozak,
Yes.
Ms. Manganello,
Abstain.
Mr. Shahada,
Yes.
Mrs. Beviano.
Yes.
Mr. Martucci.
Yes.
It's, you know what it is, it's highlighted because we hadn't had an audit in so long when we first did the resolution. We just had to change the columns,
Okay.
the recommendation and the corrective action. We had to move everything over
Okay.
because so that's why it's folded. It's got the same language, it's just moved to a different column.
Okay, so we don't need to take roll, we don't need to take it. We're good on this. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
what.
right, okay, right. Planning and policy?
Okay, I make a motion to present the following policies for approval for a second reading, policy number 9121 and policy number 9130, and I respectfully ask for a second.
Second.
Roll call.
Page 4.
Mrs. Birch,
No.
Mr. Gargano,
Yes.
Ms. Gilliam,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Kozak,
Yes.
Ms. Manganello. Yes. Mr. Shahada,
No on 9121, yes on 9130.
Mrs. Beviano.
No.
Mr. Martucci.
Yes.
Mr. President, we might have to vote on item 1, the motion to approve the order of business.
Yes, that's next.
Okay, I haven't, I must have it out of order.
No, it was out of order because there was no, the order of business wasn't the order of business unless the policy was.
Understood.
I'd like to move motion to approve the order of business for 2019, and I respectfully ask for a second.
Second.
Mrs. Birch,
Yes.
Mr. Gargano,
Yes.
Ms. Gilliam,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Kozak,
Yes.
Ms. Manganello.
Yes.
Mr. Shahada,
Yes.
Mrs. Beviano.
Yes.
Mr. Martucci.
Yes. Education purpose.
Upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools and the assistant superintendent, the following motions are presented to the Linden Board of Education for approval and respectfully ask for a second.
Second.
Mrs. Birch,
Yes.
Mr. Gargano,
Yes.
Ms. Gilliam,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Ms. Kozak,
Yes.
Manganello,
Yes on 1 and 2, I'm going to abstain on 3.
Mr. Shahada?
Yes.
Mrs. Bebiano?
Yes.
Mr. Martucci?
Yes.
So can I ask a question?
Yes.
Who's on what committee and what committees, who are the chairs, what are the sub?
What we're gonna do, I've got to finish it up tonight, and it'll be in your mailboxes, on, what's today? Tuesday? Thursday, okay? Absolutely. My personal finance report, Dan, you want to read about Bernice?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. As many of you know, we were saddened to hear of the passing of Bernice Bedrick, who was the name is a legend in Linden. Mrs. Bedrick worked for the Board of Education for 36 years. We were looking at her salary card yesterday. She started in 1950 making $2,250 a year. She began her career as a kindergarten teacher at School 5. She taught at McManus as a science teacher. She became an acting supervisor, then a department head and supervisor of science. Finally, she was appointed as the principal of School 6 in 1979, where she retired from that job in 1986. She just recently passed away at 102 years old. There might be some others who might want to say words, but there's another employee who we've recently learned who passed, James Jimmy Lewis. He worked for the Board of Education for 26 years. He started in 1969 as an assistant janitor at School 5 and then was appointed as a head custodian in 1980. So on behalf of the district, I'd like to offer our condolences to both families. Thank you, Mr. Martucci.
All right, just a few words for myself, Bernice. We actually, a few of us from Linden went up to the services today, up in Livingston, and Bernice, I've known, God, she was my 7th grade science teacher. Because when McManus was in elementary school, when I went to K to 5, and then they built 9 and 10 the same year, and I had to go to school 9 for 6th grade, and then back to McManus for 7, 8, 9, and she was my science teacher, and her husband Manny actually was the superintendent of schools back. Wow, I think I was still in middle school, and my mom was when he became superintendent, she was his secretary for 3 or 4 years. And Manny died at a very young age, at 57, 58. But Bernice lived like 2 blocks up from me, and Karen Manutza was there today, and we've known them for so long. And 102, wow. I was just thinking today, as a former history teacher, what she saw in her lifetime. If I'm not mistaken, I was crunching, she was born in 1916. So as a history teacher, wow, she saw the Depression. She saw, wow, everything. If you're familiar with history, that took place from like 1916 up to today. Wow, she saw a lot in her lifetime. And it was somewhat of a reflection today, when I went up there today. My mind was just going back in the day, but her family was great. Alan, I saw her son Alan today. I haven't seen in almost 15, 20 years. He's almost 80. And I'm reflecting the numbers where, Bernice is like 102 and Alan, and I haven't seen, wow, it was nice. And a lot of us who lived in the 9th Ward from day one, when they built those little homes, when it was a golf course, those little capes and all, and we were there for that long, and it was a very nice affair. And I'm very happy I went. And it was good, and it was nice.
May I speak, Mr. President?
Yes.
Sorry. I had the pleasure of meeting Mrs. Bedrick about 12 years ago when I first ran for the Board of Education. She actually knew my husband's uncle when he served on the Board of Ed many years ago. She had a lot of stories for me and a lot of interesting tips about being on the board. But I really got to know her through the library. If you come to the library, you'll notice the 3rd floor, there's a room actually named after Mrs. Bedrick. She is the founder of the Friends of Linden Library. She was the first president of an organization of which now I'm the president of, and it's an organization that's very close to my heart. Up until her 100th birthday, we actually celebrated her 100th birthday in the room at the library. Up until about 6 months ago, she was an avid supporter of the Friends of Linden Library and the library, and her and her son would call and find out what's going on and make sure everything's okay. So my deepest sympathies to the family. Mrs. Bedrick will be deeply missed in all areas of Linden. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, now we need a
Roll call.
Okay, we need a roll call, please. I beg your pardon?
Mr. Board President, I make a motion to move personnel appointment of the following home instructors for the 2018-2019 school year, and ask for a second.
Second.
Mrs. Birch?
Yes.
Mr. Gargano?
Yes.
Ms. Gilliam?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Kozak?
Yes.
Manganiello?
Yes.
Mr. Shahada?
Yes.
Mrs. Viviano?
Yes.
Mr. Martucci?
Yes.
Mr. Board President, I ask to finance authorizing the board secretary to draw warrants in the amount specified in favor of below listed persons, and ask for a second.
Second.
Mrs. Birch?
Yes.
Mr. Gargano?
Yes.
Ms. Gilliam?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Kozak?
Yes.
Ms. Manganiello?
Yes.
Mr. Shahada?
Yes.
Mrs. Viviano?
Yes.
Mr. Martucci?
Yes. Buildings, grounds, security report. John?
Mr. President, upon recommendation of superintendent of schools and the business administrative board secretary, the following motions are presented to the Linden Board of Education for approval. Facilities, use of facility at no charge as requested by David Walker, principal, school number 10, for the activity of kids family bingo, and that will be on Friday 6 to 9:30, January 25th. And number 2, use of facilities at no charge for McManus Middle School as requested by Nicole Harris, Executive Director, After School All Stars, New Jersey. That's the 21st Century program. It'll be in the gym at McManus, and that will be Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. The start date is January 28th, 2019, and it will commence on June 7th, 2019.
I have a question in regards to number 2. 21st Century at school at McManus, is that our program or is that something else?
So this is actually the city of Linden applied for a 21st Century grant. As I think most of you know, we have a 21st Century grant at Seoul Middle School. McManus has never had one. The city applied for a grant and they got it, and they got a pretty substantial amount of money. So originally the program was going to be housed at I believe it was going to be housed at the John Street location. Apparently it wasn't suitable enough, and then they were going to move it to the Gregorio Center, but they didn't think that was going to work. So I was contacted by the mayor's office asking if we could help with a location. So since the target audience was McManus Middle School students, we thought it would be a really good location to have it. I think it would be a really good program for our kids. Probably can enroll upwards of 150 or so students in the program.
Okay.
No, it's not our program.
That's what I just wanted to
Simply,
double check on, because I didn't
it's
think we
a-
qualified.
It's a city program. They're just using our facility.
Okay.
Do we know where they're going to be in the building? Because I know we've got play practice.
Yeah, right now they're just they'll be utilizing the gymnasium.
Okay.
If further areas are
So that
needed,
won't-
there'll have to be other requests.
That won't coincide with basketball or anything like that?
No, well, no, because I asked Mrs. Harris to meet with Mr. Fingerlin, and I believe it's worked out.
Okay.
Mr. Superintendent, so the insurance would be paid for by the city, correct? Is that-
So yeah, this is a city program. They're just using our facilities, and I believe that any organization that uses our facilities and has to give us a certificate of insurance and name us as a secondary insured. So, yeah. But, you know what, it's our kids, so it's a good thing. It's gonna be really good.
Okay, is there anything else on the agenda?
Second.
Second.
I need a second on that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Who determines who can get accepted to this program?
There will be an application process, but I think they're capable, if I remember correctly from my conversation with Ms. Harris, I think they could take up to 200 people. And even in our program that we run, which has been very successful, I don't even think we take that. So I don't think that there will be, I think if a child wants to get it, I think they'll be able to get it.
This is for the entire district though, right? This isn't just targeting
I think they're
McManus?
targeting McManus, but they will
It's for
allow
the
other
elementary
students.
schools.
Yeah.
So how the students from the other schools, how are they getting?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. All I'm recommending is allowing
Use of
that these facilities. As far as everything else, it's really up to the school.
Any other questions on that? Okay, we need a roll call on that.
Mrs. Burge?
Yes.
Mr. Gargano?
Yes.
Gillian?
Yes.
Excuse me, Ms. Johnson?
And any board member would like everything to say, please? Before we ask for a meeting to adjourn.
Before I got here today, I was at Jersey Lanes with the Linden bowling team. Currently, they're tied 2-2 when I left. I don't know if they won yet at all, but it was pretty good. It brought me back when I was bowling for Linden.
Good old days.
Yeah.
All right, anyone else?
Hopefully we get an update soon.
Mr. Martucci, I just have two quick
Sure.
updates. I wanted to update the board on our Class 3 officers. So those veterans on the board know, and our new board members might be aware that last year the Board of Education and the City Council entered into a shared service agreement to provide Class 3 officers for our schools. The hope was to have them starting prior, well, back in September. It took a little longer than expected, and the goal was to have them start when we came back from the break. Just takes a little bit more time than I anticipated for the police to do all the things that they need to do, background checks, firearm tests, and physicals and things. So the City Council has hired one officer. That officer has been through everything and is ready to go and should be starting within the next week. There is another officer who has been interviewed and is being recommended to the City Council. And he will start pending medical clearance. I spoke to Chief Hart today so that I can update you. There are 5 or 6 applications in. We're going to be interviewing some more people in the next week or so. And it's my hope, our goal was to hire 4 officers. It's my hope that that happens within the next month or so. I think it'll be a really good thing. So that's that update. And then you see that nice lady sitting right there? That's B. Rodriguez. Now, B is one of our parents, okay? But we had a meeting yesterday. B, in her real life, she works for Union County College. She's the director of enrollment. So a few months ago, Mr. Shehada introduced me to 2 deans from Union County College, Dean Peterson and Dean Rapala. And we had a meeting a few months ago, which culminated in a meeting yesterday, where I think we're on the verge of something really big and really good for our kids. I'll give you a little teaser, but there's certainly nothing that's ready yet. There's no agreement, and there's certainly nothing that requires the board to take action at this point. But the goal is to be one of the first high school in Union County and one of only 2 or 3 in New Jersey to offer what's known as an early college program. In short, what that means is we can have students who graduate, on the day they graduate high school, they get a Linden High School diploma and an associate's degree from Union County College. So in other words, you graduate high school with 2 years of college under your belt. There's lots of things that need to be worked out, there's lots of details, but I think it could happen. B, who works for Union County College, is a great asset, but she's also one of our parents, so I think that helps a little. And her daughter will be going to high school next year.
September.
In September.
Can I just add one thing?
Sure.
Just when I was talking to Danny about this, that program, wow, I'm going back 20 years ago, because there was a young boy who lived next door to my parents. His name was Joe Messenger. And if you remember, for those of you going back in the day, they had a program there like that. And it was in the papers back then, and I never forget, the headlines in the paper. He actually received his associate's degree before he received his high school diploma. Before we had graduation, it was Joe Messenger, and they had that 15 years ago, because I'm thinking back in the timeline when I was living at home, because he lived on Sunnyfield Drive, and I remember that was a big deal then. I mean, he had a 2-year college degree, and they didn't even have high school graduation yet. So he received his 2-year degree before he received his high school diploma on that June. So it was a great program. I don't know why it ever got dissolved, and I'm going back a number of years. It had to be, wow. Do you remember? I don't.
I do remember, there was actually several kids throughout the county. It was an agreement with the magnet schools. And then the kids at 16 are allowed to get their college credits if the parents bring them to the college. So we do have a couple every few years to do it, but it's never through a district. It's always through the parents.
Okay, all right. I still remember that. Well, it just said,
Yep.
it was really a good thing. Yeah, and
The potential's huge.
absolutely.
To take it one step further, Union County College can work on an articulation agreement with a four-year university, which you could get a Rutgers University or Kane or Montclair to say, okay, if you graduate from Linden High School and you get this degree, you can start as a junior here at 18 years old.
With freshman aid.
With freshman aid. That
That's
was
the trick.
explained to me yesterday. Now that's important. Why is that important? Because you get more
Freshman aid.
money as a freshman.
Yeah, you do.
You're able to get more. So
That's the goal.
it will come to you eventually.
You couldn't do this a few years ago,
I'm
huh?
working on it.
The kids are too young.
Junior university is killing me in tuition here. And she stays on campus. Yeah.
All right, anything else? Then without further ado, I ask for a motion for adjournment, please.
Motion?
Second.
Mrs. Burke?
Yes.
Mr. Gargano?
Yes.
Ms. Gilliam?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Kozak?
Yes.
Manganella?
Yes.
Mr. Shahada? Ms. Fabiano?
Yes.
Mr. Martucci?
If I'll take your blue folders, please.
Blue folders.
I'll take the blue
Yeah,
folders.
bring them back.
She likes it. She only has one on it. That build house. She likes that big narrow little side. All the sides. She doesn't know what that is. Oh, no, that's what she sees. What should you do? When I went on to look, I ended up with all these signs. I figured, no, you tell me.